The rain had just stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining under the pale glow of streetlights. Midnight in Brookhaven was quiet, too quiet. The rows of houses stood still, curtains drawn, lights off, the whole neighborhood asleep. Ethan Miles, a 27-year-old graphic designer, walked briskly down the narrow sidewalk, hands in his jacket pockets, headphones in, the low hum of indie music filling his ears. It was the same walk he took every night after finishing his late shift at the studio. Safe, familiar, routine. But tonight, something felt different. The air was heavy, cold enough to make his breath visible. The kind of silence that made even the faintest sound feel loud. As Ethan passed the old Maple Street alley, a narrow lane that cut between two abandoned houses, his music glitched. A faint crackle of static burst through the earbuds, distorting the melody. He frowned, pulling one earphone out. The street was empty, except for the low rustle of leaves and the steady drip of rainwater from rooftops. He shook his phone, thinking it was just bad reception. But then he heard it. A faint click, like the sound of a shoe sole brushing against wet pavement. He turned around sharply. Nothing. The street stretched behind him, perfectly still, the yellow lights reflecting in puddles. Probably a cat, he muttered, forcing a laugh, though his voice trembled slightly. He turned back and continued walking, tried to ignore the growing chill creeping up his neck. His reflection in the store windows followed him, but for some reason, he couldn't shake the feeling that something else did too, something unseen, moving just beyond the corner of his eye. Then from deep within the alley came a low, distant echo, like someone exhaling. Ethan stopped again. His phone flickered. The static returned, louder this time, as if whispering through his headphones. For the first time that night, Ethan realized he wasn't walking alone. After the strange events, Claire decided to install a new baby monitor camera, one with motion sensors and cloud recording. She told herself it was just for peace of mind, but deep down, she wanted proof. Every night, before sleeping, she checked the live feed to make sure Mia was safe. For a few nights, everything seemed fine. Then, on the fourth night, around 2 a.m., Claire's phone vibrated, motion detected in nursery. She opened the app groggily, expecting to see Mia turning in her sleep. Instead, the feed showed Lena, standing perfectly still beside the crib. She wasn't touching the baby, not even moving, just staring. The room was pitch dark, yet Lena's face appeared pale, her eyes wide open, unblinking. Claire watched in frozen silence as the minutes passed. Lena remained there for over an hour, motionless. Then suddenly, the camera went black. In the morning, Lena acted normal, cheerful as ever. When Claire confronted her, she laughed softly. You must have imagined it. Maybe a glitch. But when Claire opened the app again, the entire recording from that night was gone. Deleted. Over the next few days, the camera began showing odd distortions, faces appearing for a split second before vanishing. Sometimes, Claire saw a flicker of a second figure behind Lena. Sometimes it looked like herself, standing in the dark. One evening, while reviewing footage, she noticed the nursery door behind Lena slowly creak open on its own. A faint whisper came through the monitor. Don't trust her. Heart pounding, Claire ran to the nursery. Lena was holding Mia, humming again. Claire snatched the baby from her arms, shaking. Who are you? She demanded. Lena smiled, calm, almost loving. I'm the one keeping her safe. You're the one who keeps leaving her alone. Ethan's breathing quickened as the night pressed in around him. The air felt thick, heavy, as if it were clinging to his skin. The houses on both sides of the street looked unfamiliar now, their windows black and empty, their silhouettes warped by the mist. He kept glancing over his shoulder, every few seconds expecting to see that same tall figure again. But the street was deserted. He focused on the streetlights ahead, a row of amber halos stretching into the distance. They were his only comfort, guiding him home. He clutched his phone, swiping up to turn on the flashlight app. The screen froze. He tried again. Nothing. The flashlight icon blinked once, then went dead. And that's when the first streetlight flickered out. He stopped, staring at the empty pool of darkness where it once glowed. Another light went out, then another. The blackness advanced toward him, swallowing the road in rhythm with his pounding heart. One by one, each lamp blinked off, click, 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 the darkness crawling closer like a living thing. Ethan stumbled backward, his breath fogging the air. Behind him, the light still burned faintly, casting a narrow circle of safety. He turned toward a parked car to steady himself, and that's when he saw it. In the car's rain-streaked window, his reflection looked wrong. It wasn't just his face. There was another shape beside him, a tall, narrow shadow, its head tilted slightly as if watching him. But when Ethan spun around, there was nothing, just silence and the sound of rainwater trickling into a gutter. Then came a low, almost mechanical hum. It wasn't coming from the air. It vibrated under his feet, deep and rhythmic, like a heartbeat buried beneath the street. The pavement trembled softly. Ethan crouched, pressing his palm against the wet asphalt. The sound grew louder, pulsing from below. Something, or someone, was moving under the street. Ethan's pulse hammered in his throat as the low vibration beneath the pavement faded away, leaving only the hiss of the wind. He stepped back, his shoes splashing in a puddle. The street behind him was completely dark now, all the lights dead. The only faint glow came from the dim houses far down the block, their curtains swaying slightly, as if breathing. He spotted a narrow lane to his right, an old service alley that cut between two rows of brick buildings. Without thinking, he darted into it. The moment he entered, the world grew quieter, heavier. The air smelled like wet concrete and rust. Somewhere in the distance, water dripped rhythmically, echoing like a heartbeat. Ethan leaned against the cold wall, trying to calm himself. His phone still wouldn't turn on. No music, no flashlight, nothing but the faint red blink of a dying battery. He swallowed hard. Then, a whisper. "Ethan." He froze. The voice was soft, almost gentle, but it came from behind him. He turned quickly. Nothing. Just the narrow, empty lane stretching into shadow. His throat tightened. "Ethan." The second whisper was closer, clearer, as if spoken directly into his ear. He spun around, stepping backward, his eyes wide. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice trembling. His words bounced off the wet brick walls and came back to him, warped. Silence. Then a breath, warm, human, brushed against his neck. "Don't look back." The voice was his own. Ethan's body locked up. Every instinct screamed for him to run, but curiosity, or terror, forced him to turn his head just slightly. Standing in the faint light behind him was a figure, his exact self, grinning, eyes too wide, face twitching unnaturally. Before he could scream, the figure vanished, dissolving into mist that whispered his name one last time. "Ethan," and then the alley went silent again. Ethan burst out of the alley, gasping for breath, his shoes slapping against the wet pavement. His lungs burned as he sprinted through the fog-drenched streets, no longer caring which direction led home, only wanting to get away. The town felt unfamiliar now, as though he had run into a version of Brookhaven that shouldn't exist. The lights here were dimmer, the houses older, their roofs caved in and windows boarded. Then, through the mist, he spotted it. A house standing alone at the corner, its porch light faintly flickering. The paint peeled off its wooden walls, and the front door hung slightly open, creaking with each breath of wind. It looked abandoned, but somehow inviting. Desperation overruled reason. Ethan ran up the porch steps and pushed the door open. The hinges wailed like something alive. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust, mildew, and the faint scent of smoke. The floorboards groaned beneath his feet. Moonlight spilled through broken curtains, cutting the dark into pale strips. He whispered to himself, "Just need to catch my breath, just for a minute." As he walked deeper, something caught his eye on the far wall. A cluster of Polaroid photos, hundreds of them, tacked haphazardly from floor to ceiling. His pulse slowed as he stepped closer. Each photo showed a person walking home alone at night. The same street, same faint yellow lights, their faces blurred, stretched, or completely erased. Then his gaze froze on one picture in the center. His heart stopped. It was him, the same jacket, the same street, the same puddle reflection beneath his feet, exactly as it had been minutes ago. The photo hadn't existed when he passed that street, which meant someone had taken it just now. Ethan's hands began to tremble. Somewhere deep in the house, a floorboard creaked, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps moving closer. And then a whisper from the dark hall said softly, "Smile for the next one, Ethan." Ethan's eyes darted toward the dark hallway, his chest tightening with every shallow breath. The whisper still echoed in his mind, "Smile for the next one, Ethan." The floorboards creaked again, slow and deliberate, each step heavier than the last. He stumbled backward until his shoulder brushed against something cold and smooth. A mirror. It stood in a tall wooden frame at the corner of the room, its glass cloudy with age and dust. He turned toward it and froze. His reflection stared back at him, pale and trembling, but not quite the same. There was something subtly wrong. The reflection's head tilted slightly to the side. Its chest rose a moment after his, and when he blinked, it didn't. Ethan wiped the glass with his sleeve, whispering, "What the hell?" The reflection smiled, a wide, crooked smile that stretched far beyond human expression. Ethan stumbled back, shaking his head. No, that's not real." The reflection leaned forward, pressing its palm against the inside of the mirror, exactly where Ethan's hand hovered. But while his fingers trembled, the reflection's hand was steady, and from the other side of the glass, it began to push. A thin crack spidered across the mirror's surface, followed by a sound like grinding teeth. The air around Ethan grew colder. The lights flickered once, then died completely, leaving only the faint glow of moonlight. From within the glass, his reflection whispered in his exact voice, "You shouldn't have walked alone." Then, with a sound like breaking ice, the reflection stepped out. The figure was solid now, identical to Ethan, but slightly off. Its smile didn't fade. It tilted its head, watching him, mimicking his every shaky breath a second too late. Ethan stumbled backward, tripping over a fallen chair. His phone dropped, camera still recording as the reflection approached slowly, whispering softly, "Now there's two of us." The screen flickered white, and then everything went silent. The sun rose quietly over Brookhaven, its golden light spilling across damp rooftops and empty streets. The rain from last night had washed everything clean, leaving behind a deceptive calm, the kind that hides the memory of terror beneath its surface. By 7 a.m., police cars lined the old corner where the abandoned house stood. Yellow tape fluttered in the breeze, cutting across the porch. A few neighbors gathered at a distance, whispering among themselves. None of them had ever noticed the house before, though it had apparently stood there for decades. Detective Laura Hale stepped over the tape, her boots creaking on the warped wooden floor. The air inside smelled of wet ash and dust. She scanned the dim living room, flashlight beam slicing through the gloom. On the far wall, hundreds of Polaroid photos hung, some curled with age, some freshly pinned. She leaned closer. Every photograph showed a lone figure walking home at night, faces blurred or scratched away. In the middle of the display, one photo caught her attention, a young man, drenched, holding his phone on a rainy street. Scrawled in shaky handwriting beneath it, Ethan Miles, 2:17 a.m. Laura frowned. According to the missing person report, Ethan had left work just after midnight. His phone had been found nearby, cracked, still recording. She played the last video file. The faint sound of rain. Footsteps. Ethan's trembling voice whispering, "Someone's following me," then static. A faint hiss like breathing through glass. Suddenly, the screen flickered. For a fraction of a second, she saw Ethan's reflection smiling behind the camera. The feed cut to black. Laura slowly looked up at a nearby mirror leaning against the wall. For a moment, she thought she saw movement, a face that wasn't hers, standing just behind her shoulder. She blinked. It was gone. Outside, the camera lingered on the house as police packed up. In the reflection of a nearby car window, Ethan stood silently on the porch, smiling faintly, watching them leave.